English Politics Podcast.
English Politics Podcast.
English Politics Podcast. Good day, listeners. Welcome to another thought-provoking episode of the English Politics Podcast, where we delve deep into political strategies, global events, and the personalities shaping our world. I'm your host, Emily Carter, and today we have a very special guest joining us. He's a leader whose policies and decisions have left an indelible mark on the United States and the world stage. Please welcome the 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. President Trump, thank you for taking the time to be here. How are you today?
Emily, I'm fantastic. It's always a pleasure to talk about the important issues that affect not only the United States, but the entire globe. This podcast does a great job informing people, and I'm happy to be part of it.
Thank you for your kind words, Mr. President. Today's topic is one that has captured the attention of policymakers, analysts, and ordinary citizens alike: the possibility of future U.S. military actions. We're asking the big question: will the U.S. strike again? Before we dive into the specifics, I'd like to ask, in your view, what is the current state of America's military strategy on the global stage?
Well, Emily, the United States remains the most powerful nation on Earth. Our military is unmatched, and under my leadership, we ensured that our armed forces were well-funded and well-prepared. But a strong military isn't just about weapons. It's about strategy, diplomacy, and knowing when to act. That's what we're going to discuss today.
Absolutely. And listeners, make sure you stay tuned as we unpack some pressing questions about potential conflicts, diplomatic efforts, and what the future holds for America's role in maintaining global peace. Let's dive right in. Mr. President, our first question. Given the escalating tensions in the Middle East, particularly with Iran, do you believe the U.S. is prepared to take military action if necessary?
Absolutely, Emily. The United States must always be prepared to defend its interests and its allies. However, military action should never be the first option. During my presidency, we demonstrated strength through deterrence. Take the Soleimani strike, for example. It was a decisive move that sent a clear message. Preparation is key, but diplomacy must remain a priority.
Second question. Critics often argue that U.S. interventions have led to long-term instability. How would you address these concerns?
That's a fair question, Emily. Stability is always the goal. However, you have to understand that failing to act can sometimes lead to greater instability. My administration focused on America first, but we also worked to ensure that our actions would lead to better outcomes for all involved. Every decision must weigh the risks and benefits.
Third question. If the U.S. were to engage in another conflict, what lessons from past interventions should guide future strategies?
The most important lesson is to have a clear exit strategy. Wars that drag on for decades drain resources and morale. My administration prioritized efficiency, achieving our goals, and bringing our troops home. Future strategies must focus on precision, partnerships, and purpose.
Final question. What message would you like to convey to America's allies and adversaries regarding the U.S.'s position on global military engagement?
My message is simple. America will always stand strong. To our allies, we are here to support and protect. To our adversaries, do not test our resolve. Peace is always preferable, but we are not afraid to defend ourselves if provoked.
The aftermath of a decision. The air was still in the Afghan village of Darband, nestled between jagged mountains and dusty plains. For decades, the village had been a quiet home to shepherds and farmers, untouched by the chaos that had gripped the rest of the region. That all changed one fateful night when the sound of drones pierced the silence, forever altering the lives of those who called Darband home. A village on the brink. Rahim, a 14-year-old boy, had spent the day tending to his family's small flock of goats. His father, Mustafa, was a respected elder in the village, known for his wisdom and kindness. Mustafa often spoke about the days before the wars, a time when peace allowed communities to thrive. Rahim loved these stories. They painted a picture of a life he could scarcely imagine. But as night fell, the calm of the village was shattered. The hum of approaching drones grew louder, accompanied by the faint glimmer of lights in the sky. Rahim ran to his family's modest home, where his mother and younger sister huddled in fear. Mustafa stood at the doorway, his eyes scanning the horizon. "It's happening again," Mustafa muttered, his voice heavy with resignation. The drones were part of a U.S. military operation targeting a suspected terrorist cell hidden in the mountains. Intelligence had indicated the presence of a high-ranking operative, and the strike had been authorized at the highest levels. For Rahim and his family, however, the reasons behind the strike were a distant concern. All they could do was brace for what was to come: the strike. The first explosion rocked the mountainside, sending a shockwave through the valley. Rahim's younger sister let out a scream as their home trembled. Mustafa pulled his family closer, his voice calm but firm. "Stay low and stay together." In the distance, plumes of smoke rose into the night sky. The sounds of helicopters soon followed, their rotors slicing through the air. Villagers emerged cautiously from their homes, their faces etched with fear and confusion. Rahim's best friend, Zaid, appeared at the door, his eyes wide. "Rahim, the fields are on fire. The livestock, everything is burning." Rahim felt a surge of anger and helplessness. The goats he had cared for, the fields that provided for his family, all of it was being consumed by flames. He turned to his father, who placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "We must survive first," Mustafa said. "Then we rebuild." The morning after, when dawn broke, the full extent of the devastation became clear. The targeted building, a stone structure hidden in the mountains, had been reduced to rubble. The U.S. military declared the operation a success, having eliminated a key threat. But for the villagers of Darband, the cost of that success was overwhelming. Rahim and Zaid wandered through the charred remains of the fields. Ash covered the ground, and the air was thick with the acrid smell of smoke. They found the lifeless bodies of several goats, their blackened forms a stark reminder of what had been lost. In the center of the village, a group of elders, including Mustafa, gathered to assess the damage. They spoke in hushed tones, their expressions a mix of grief and anger. One elder, an outspoken man named Hamid, clenched his fists. "Why must we pay the price for their wars?" Hamid demanded. "We are farmers, not fighters." Mustafa raised his hand, his voice measured. "Anger will not bring back what we have lost. We must focus on how to protect our families and rebuild our lives." Rahim watched his father, feeling a deep sense of admiration. Mustafa's calm leadership in the face of tragedy gave the villagers a sense of hope, even as they grappled with their pain. The global perspective. Thousands of miles away, in Washington, D.C., the strike was the subject of intense debate. The president and his advisors reviewed reports detailing the operation's success. The high-ranking operative had been neutralized, and intelligence suggested the terrorist network had been dealt a significant blow. But not everyone was convinced. A young analyst named Sarah raised concerns during a briefing. "Mr. President, while the operation achieved its immediate goal, the collateral damage cannot be ignored. Civilians were affected, and the local community is likely to resent our actions." The president leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "We had to act, Sarah. The threat was real, and doing nothing wasn't an option." Sarah nodded but persisted. "I understand, sir, but the long-term consequences could undermine our efforts to win hearts and minds. We need to consider how to support the affected communities moving forward." The discussion highlighted the complexity of modern warfare, where decisions made in high-tech war rooms had profound and far-reaching consequences. Rebuilding and resilience. In Darband, life slowly began to return to a semblance of normalcy. The villagers banded together to repair their homes and replant their fields. International aid organizations arrived, providing food, medical supplies, and rebuilding materials. Rahim found solace in helping his father rebuild their home. He also began to see the power of community as neighbors worked side by side, sharing resources and offering support. The tragedy had brought them closer, creating bonds that would not easily be broken. One day, Rahim approached Mustafa with a question that had been weighing on his mind. "Father, will things ever go back to how they were before?" Mustafa looked at his son, his eyes filled with both sadness and determination. "The past is gone, Rahim, but the future is ours to shape. Remember this. Strength is not in never falling, but in rising every time we do." A new understanding. The events in Darband were not unique. Across the world, communities affected by conflict faced similar challenges of loss, resilience, and rebuilding. For policymakers and military leaders, the story of Darband served as a poignant reminder of the human cost of war. For Rahim, the experience shaped his future. He dreamed of becoming a teacher, determined to educate the next generation about the importance of understanding and empathy. He believed that through knowledge, people could break the cycle of conflict and build a world where peace was more than just a distant dream. The story of Darband was one of loss and resilience, despair and hope. It was a story that echoed across generations, reminding everyone that the decisions of today would shape the world of tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. President, for sharing your insights on such a critical topic. These discussions are vital for understanding the complexities of global politics and America's role in shaping the future.
Thank you, Emily. It's been a pleasure. And to all the listeners, stay informed and never stop asking questions. Our country thrives on engaged citizens.
Absolutely, Mr. President. And to our audience, thank you for joining us on this journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Your support helps us bring these important conversations to light. Follow the English Politics Podcast for daily episodes where we discuss the events shaping our world. Together, let's stay informed, curious, and connected. Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone, and thank you for listening